Is Duluth, Minnesota a vacation spot? Erin and I went there in October, and in this video we'll show you what we did. Though we went to see Lake Superior, we found some good beer and we found a fascinating bridge that you'll hear way too much about. But now I can say I've been to Duluth. Our outbound flight was on an Embraer 175. We were flying United, and in their configuration, their first class on this rather small plane had 2 seats on one side and 1 on another. We were going to be served a meal, but otherwise, it was just a bigger seat. And there's nothing wrong with that. I should probably tell you that I'm one of those people that finds aircraft taking off fascinating, and I spend my time looking out the window. If you are not, please just bear through the next minute or so. I'm guilty of looking out the window trying to find things I can spot as landmarks or even looking for my own house. Pretty cliche, but I admit it. On this particular day, though, as soon as we were off the ground, we were into the clouds and there was not much to see for the entire flight until we got very close to the Minneapolis airport. Here is the breakfast we were served. It was fine. After an uneventful flight of about 2 hours, we landed in Minneapolis-St. Paul, which is really Bloomington from what I understand. Anyway. Apparently I don't find landings as fascinating as takeoffs based on this part of the video. Honestly, we taxied for a pretty long time. I won't make you watch all of it. Finally, it was time to say welcome to Minnesota and pick up our luggage. That isn't our luggage, but anyway. We picked up our rental car and we were off on our way to Duluth. The highway is great, but there aren't a lot of attractions between Minneapolis and Duluth. But there were enough. We decided to stop in Moose Lake at the Moose Lake Brewing Company. We're in Moose Lake, Minnesota at the Moose Lake Brewing Company. I'll bet you can guess the name of this lake. The Moose Lake Brewing Company is a microbrewery that has a number of really good beers. Let's have a look around. The brewery was set up in such a way that you could get cans to take with you or fresh beer to drink from tap. You could also peer into the area where the beer was made. Because we were there on a Thursday afternoon, some of the larger spaces were not in use. It wasn't very crowded, but all of the merch was there and they had a lot of nice shirts and other things to pick up as souvenirs. All in all, it was just a really nice place to stop, have a look at a lake, and have a beer. As an aside, one of the fun things about microbreweries is how they support other microbreweries, and this was no exception. The stickers were from all over the country. Okay, review time. Was it good? We didn't play Keno and we'll have to save the game room for another time, but we hope there is another time. Not much later, we made it to Duluth and we arrived at our hotel, Pier B Resort. Pier B actually is a pier. It used to be used as a grain pier. Now it's used for other purposes. One of those purposes is to have a resort hotel. And the hotel was pretty nice. Our room was on the 4th floor, and it was fine. It wasn't that fancy, but it was fine. But then we saw the view. Now that was spectacular. From our room, we had a great view of Duluth Harbor, and most important, of the Duluth Aerial Bridge. This lift bridge was something we would look at a lot. But back to the resort. It had a nice hot tub, though we never used it, but it also had some great waterfront seating. The room was spacious and neat. It had everything we needed, except for maybe one thing. It did not have an in-room safe. Maybe when you're in Duluth, Minnesota, you don't need an in-room safe, but I was looking for one for a while. It did have a microwave, though. And for those of you fascinated by hotel bathrooms, here's the hotel bathroom. Remember when I said that the view from the room was spectacular? Once the sun went down, I think you'd agree with me. The waterfront outdoor seating had fire pits, and on a cool night, they were very welcome. We walked down to take a good look at Duluth Harbor at night. But we were also tired from the travel, and we retired early. I've gotten into the annoying habit, when I can, of leaving the curtains open so that I can see the sunrise. It was worth it this time. Take a look at the lift span of the bridge. It's in use. Can you see that it's settling back down into place so that cars can drive over it? Shortly after the bridge went down, the sun came up. And once the sun was up, we opted to leave the room messy and to head out on an adventure. Every good adventure begins with provisioning, so we went to breakfast in Silos, the restaurant at the resort. It was now Friday morning, and it's safe to say it wasn't too crowded. That would be coffee, French toast, and biscuits and gravy. The resort's location right on the walking path along the harbor proved to be a wonderful thing. Outside of the main building, Pier B offers boat rentals and also has its spa. Although we didn't use the spa, it was clear it had a wood-fired sauna, and that was tempting. But now it's adventure time, so let's walk down by the harbor and see where we can go. Turns out that from the Pier B Resort, the Great Lakes Aquarium is an easy and short walk. Just walk toward the bridge. I have to figure this place gets pretty crowded other times of the year, but it wasn't crowded when we were here, and that was just fine by me. First and foremost, the aquarium dealt with the aquatic life from the Great Lakes, as you would expect, but that wasn't all it had. I mean, the fish are pretty interesting, but then you come to the skunks. Seems strange to call skunks the highlight of an aquarium, but I would have to say for me they were. Back to fish, the displays included a number of species that were not native to the Great Lakes, but rather from warmer waters. The aquarium has a nice gift shop too, but it was time to move on to our next thing. We walked into town and headed for the railroad station. It's time for the North Shore Scenic Railroad. Because we booked well in advance, we had great seats in the observation car for the North Shore Scenic Railroad. Alas, I had miscalculated in two ways. The first was that I thought we would see fall foliage, and we really didn't. And the second was I didn't know it was going to rain the whole time. Oh, about that thing in the upper left-hand corner. Every table on the train had a floral arrangement, and that's part of it. On this particular excursion, the railroad goes several miles north, then changes the engine over to the other side of the train and comes back to the station. It's not too long of a trip. But because the engine changes ends instead of the train turning around, that means that whatever you saw on the way up, you'll also see on the way back. That's one of the reasons early seat selection online can be important. Let's look out the window for a little while at Lake Superior. You can tell that as the trip went on, the rain got a little heavier. Time for the engine to switch ends. Soon we were on our way back south, and you can see what I said about the fall foliage not really being peak. With our tickets, you got served some free food and a couple of beverages. And here we go back to the station. Hey, there's our hotel. Before I disembarked, I got a quick look at the observation car for you. And then also of the waiting area. By the way, there's a really nice gift shop here. Time to head back to the hotel, but not before we got a look at downtown and the next train north. We passed back by the Aquarium and then past the Statue of Liberty. I mean, why not? A few places have these replicas. For dinner, we left the resort and headed down to an area that we would later find out was indeed Canal Park. We had a surprisingly good Mexican food dinner, and then we walked down to the canal itself. Should I mention that you're about to get to see that bridge again? Maybe it gets old, but it doesn't get old in 3 days. Okay, bedtime, back to Pier B.
At least to get a badge.
It was.
Welcome to Saturday morning in downtown Duluth. We had some breakfast, and then we just walked around. It least this part of downtown was an interesting combination of businesses coming and businesses going. We found ourselves in a small park overlooking Lake Superior and the Lake Walk, the path that runs along the lake. From this location, we had one of our best views of Lake Superior. We even spotted a freighter well off in the distance. It was also a good place to see the lighthouses and the shipping lane that passes under the aerial bridge into Duluth Harbor. That was pleasant enough, but let's go figure out where the people are today. It's time to head to Canal Park. Canal Park is part of Duluth's business district. It is predictably near the canal that connects Duluth Harbor with Lake Superior. There's the aerial lift bridge again. It's an area with restaurants, microbreweries, and other shops that would appeal to tourists. And we were tourists, so there we went. There are some interesting things to see, like glass blowing.
Alright, so now I can stretch these two legs of the glass.
We had come specifically seeking out two microbreweries. The first was Canal Park Brewing Company, and it was packed. And honestly, it was easy to see why. They had a lot of taps and a lot of choices, and everything that we tried was good. They also served food, so they were doing a big lunchtime business. We ended up sitting outside where it was cold. That was fun. Only a short walk from Canal Brewing Company is Hoops Brewing Company. They too had a nice selection, and really, you can't go wrong with going to either of these places to have a beer or two. The main difference is at Canal Park you can order food, whereas at Hoops you have to order your food delivered. And then it was time for our Duluth Harbor cruise. We made our way over to our ship, the Vista Star. It's time for the rules.
Maximum capacity of 44 people. This is Coast Guard regulated for stability, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the water's a little bit cold for swimming lessons.
You're doing an amazing job at catching your feet, so please watch your step going into and out of those doorways.
And with that, it's time to set out into Duluth Harbor. The cruise lasted 90 minutes. There was an option to sit indoors where it was warmer, but what's the fun in that? So we sat up top. The ship's tour guide kept up an interesting, but a little non-stop, narrative of all the things that we were seeing. One of the most important points you learn when doing this cruise is that Duluth Harbor is an active port with many things going on in it. Shipments of grain and ore leave the area. And looking back at the Pier B Resort from the water, it's obvious that it used to be used for grain. By the way, here's the Aquarium from Duluth Harbor. My fascination with the big freighters continued. I really enjoyed seeing them. I believe we saw this ship pass under the aerial bridge later that night. This is not a dying port either. You can see that there was new construction of facilities for the freighters. To be fair, after a while it began to look a little the same, though. I think you're going to agree with me on that point. It was about here that I wish it was just a little warmer and just a little sunnier. These tugboats are about 80 years old, but they're still in use around the harbor. And in the background, you can see the bridge that takes you from Duluth to Superior, Wisconsin. What is a little more interesting is you can also see half of the bridge that doesn't take you from Duluth to Superior. That span on the right side that seems to go nowhere goes nowhere. Turns out Wisconsin never funded its side of the bridge. Once we passed under the bridge, we got a better look at how this whole operation works. The freight, whether it's grain or iron ore pellets, is brought to the loading positions by train. The ships then pull up to the pier, like this one, and large chutes are lowered onto the deck of the ship. Then the ore pours down the chutes. More chutes means faster loading. Here's a similar operation on the Wisconsin side of the harbor. As we returned, we saw the Coast Guard ship assigned to the harbor. And of course, there's the good old Duluth aerial lift bridge. Overall, the trip was just a little longer than I would have preferred, but I'd still recommend it. Our Duluth harbor cruise ended at about dinner time, so we headed back to the car, which was parked in Canal Park. We passed a flock of birds, the scooter kind, and soon we were on our way to what proved to be about a 20-minute drive to Superior, Wisconsin, to a place that Erin had found. It's hard to go wrong with beer and pizza, and we didn't here. We returned to our hotel for the last night and got some good night views of the bridge yet again. Here was our view the next morning. I don't recall us going to breakfast unusually early, but having a look around the restaurant suggests that maybe we did. The breakfast menu doesn't change and has plenty of choices. But it was departure day. As we headed out, we realized that we had never driven across the bridge that we had been admiring for 2 full days. So we remedied that. I think you could fairly say that our fascination with this bridge went a little too far, but it's a really cool bridge. Across the bridge lay a neighborhood on a spit of land so narrow that homes on either side of it had waterfront property. As you can see, when we were there, it was a gray and foggy day. It was definitely a beautiful neighborhood, but when we checked later on the internet, we learned that the homes were well above $1 million in some cases. We also learned that the only road in or out went back across that aerial bridge, so here we go again. After that frolic and detour, we were on our way back to Minneapolis-St. Paul, and boy did we find the fog then. But we also found a place called Boba Coffee. If you call your place Boba Coffee, you get my business. I've left Erin inside because they are slammed and the line is long. Hopefully she'll get me something. Boba Coffee has a wide range of choices for drinks and also has merchandise that you can pick up. Judging from the business on both inside and outside the store, I would say it's not a very well kept secret, and it shouldn't be. It's good. My go-to beverage is the mocha, which I both needed and enjoyed. Back on the road and out of the fog, I would have to say that we were there at the wrong time of year to get much fall foliage. But after about a 2.5-hour drive, we were back in the Twin Cities. Our arrival time gave us a chance to do something we both wanted to do, which was go to Mall of America and see the amusement park there. We didn't actually go into the park, but we got a good look at it. There were a wide variety of rides, but it was surprising to see how few people were there. Then again, I don't know what's normal for this kind of thing. Maybe this was normal, but if it is, I'm surprised this place is still open. The next morning brought both a beautiful sunrise and the need to travel back home. We boarded our approximately 2-hour flight and settled in. We were provided with what Erin named our first-class Lunchables, but the flight was very short anyway. Soon enough, we were landing at our home airport and taxiing to the gate. So what were my final impressions? I would say that Duluth is a great place to visit, at least for a long weekend, and if you enjoy camping or other activities outdoors, you could make a full week or even maybe 2 out of it. There's so much to do up in that area. But if you're not a camper or hiker and you're not going to take advantage of the lake or the other lakes around it, perhaps this isn't a place for a long trip. If asking yourself if you'd go back to a place is any sort of test, then Duluth passes. I would go back there. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you would hit like and subscribe to my channel. Erin and I have what should be some pretty interesting international travel planned in the upcoming year, so keep an eye out for it, and I hope you'll watch those videos as well. Bye for now.